Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
I am not Tom Dutta. My name is Jon McComb, and I am sitting in for Tom Dutta on this edition of the Quiet Warrior Show, simply because Tom Dutta is going to be our special guest. We are going live at this moment on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, giving you a bit of a peek into the studio for the podcast, the Quiet Warrior Show, and of course, Tom Dutta. I've known Tom now for, 7 or 8 years, and have watched this man grow from being a corporate CEO, going through the throes, really, of becoming an author, then a radio host and a podcast host, his creation of the Quiet Warrior brand, the emergence of Tom as a TEDx speaker, right on through to today being a thought leader, and the recipient, and one of the reasons I'm here, the recipient of a very prestigious award of excellence in education for Tom's Create training program. That is a lot for a guy. In fact, he's done so much more than I have in the last 5 years. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. But Tommy, thank you for asking me to host the show. It's a pleasure to be here. And how are you? Great to see you.
Geez, Jon, I'm wearing a jacket in your honor, and it's it's.
I thought it was the other way around.
It is fun to be live streaming on my show. It's just great having you here, Jon, and I can't believe 7 years have flown by. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Now, congratulations on the Excellence in Education Award. It is a prestigious award. Tell us about it and how it came about.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jon. We have a little video clip that I'll play in a moment. I did an acceptance speech, but this is one of those moments where today we're talking about what is a thought leader, how to become one, Jon. And, I didn't have an idea when I started doing what I'm doing, where this would go. You always look for recognition from your peers or recognition, I guess, from the world around you to know if you're doing the right thing. A few months ago, the organization that honored me with this award said they found me. They actually had researchers across the internet, across different platforms, and they said they found 1,000 people, and they narrowed it down to 100, and I made the cut. They actually had a high bar with some requirements that I had to fulfill, and I was just blown away when I received the award. Would you like to take a look at the video clip? We might as well start there.
Absolutely. And this was June of 2021. They actually were gathered in Las Vegas, but because of COVID, you couldn't go. The Global Forum for Education and Learning, top 100 visionary educators and thought leaders. And here's a bit of what that sounded like.
Hi, my name is Tom Dutta. I'm a thought leader and I'm a storyteller. And I'm speaking to you from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is my home. Thank you very much for bestowing on me this award of excellence for education. I receive it with humility, and I receive it with great gratitude. For 30 years, I've been a business leader turned teacher and educator. There's nothing more that I'm passionate about than helping create happier, healthier, and stronger charactered people in the world. And to all of you, thank you for being part of this global forum. To the organizers, the judges, and other delegates, this is an amazing initiative. Let's keep moving forward. I'm proud to be part of it. So thank you very much, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Goodbye for now from Vancouver, Canada.
That is very, very cool, my man. That is very, very cool. So what does this mean to you? Because I've watched you, as I said, I've watched you grow through so many different aspects and avenues related to Create, but also related to the way of the Quiet Warrior and now the Quiet Warrior Show. So what does this mean to you in terms of all of that, all the work that you've done?
Well, thanks, Johnny. It was just on the video. It was fun shooting that. It definitely puts us in a different era when you have a COVID and you have to receive an award like this by video
In the
in,
mail, yeah.
in the mail. I want to show you the actual award. I'm very proud of this, and I'd like to hold it up here. It arrived just this week before us. There it is there.
Wow, sweet.
That's a fairly hefty award.
It looks
Uh,
like it is, yeah.
And, jumping ahead to the topic of thought leader, when you finally get recognized out in the world for the work you're doing, people find you and they say, you know what, you're different, and something that you're doing is making an impact. That really just gives you reassurance that you're moving in the right direction. And it is a pinnacle. It's a moment that I've been searching for because of some of the things that have been happening over the last couple of years. It's an affirmation that I should just keep going in that direction. I want to read you one other thing here, John, that uh, there's a high bar for this award. There was a cutoff score of 75 points
Mhm.
in this category to win it. And I'll just tell you the categories. And my average score was 87.5. So I was just blown away by how
Wow.
they thought of me.
Yeah.
They rated me in the area of overall reach. So total number of different people or groups exposed to my products or services, the things I'm doing. They looked at industry impact uh, and the impact that what I'm doing is having on different sectors. And John, the work I do is across many sectors because it's in the area of developing people.
Right.
And then also they took a look at things like spirit of innovation and some of the things that I do, as you mentioned, the platform that I have is across different areas. So as you mentioned, we have a podcast and a live stream. There's some books and there's education company. Excited to announce that we're making a feature film that'll be done in Vancouver. I'm a
Wow.
producer. That all of these things that just keep coming together, and that's innovation. As a thought leader, how do you become a megaphone around the world with whatever you're saying? The last two categories were future readiness, and they
Mhm.
really were looking at what technologies and what are you doing to deal with the future of the world. And then market demand, I got my highest score on that. And this was, are people really looking at what I'm doing and wanting to be, wanting to be part of what I'm doing? And so yeah, that was a big moment. I want to get into the whole idea of why thought leadership, what it is, uh, and talk about how I really stumbled into it. It wasn't a master plan at the beginning.
Well, let's do that. Let's go and because when I hear thought leader, um, eh, I don't know quite what to think because there was a time when I was in the radio business, as you know, that somebody described me as an opinion setter or an opinion leader, and I thought that seems kind of an odd thing. I did never thought of myself as that way. I mean, I gave my opinions, I did editorials, but to be a leader, to be thought of as a leader in a particular category like that is it kind of takes you back a bit. But what does being a thought leader mean to you, and how does that manifest every day?
Yeah, going back to you, John, 45 years as a veteran broadcaster, it's very hard to see yourself if you're humble and you have humility, which you're a man of that. I never saw
Thank
myself
you.
as a thought leader. But I'm going to go a little deep on the answer to this. That first of all, let's split up the words thought and leader. Now you can Google the word thought leader, and you're going to find different answers. I
Yeah.
can give you examples of people out there who are considered thought leaders. People like Simon Sinek, who talks about leadership through a different lens. There's a people. One of my guys I follow is a fellow named Damon John, and when my book, we went #1 on the debut of the Way of the Quiet Warrior book, and we beat out Damon. I like to say that on the day sorry, Damon, we were up in the business category, and they'll never take that away from me. And I love Damon, but he created a company called Fubu. He's the CEO of Fubu, Fubu, which is a clothing company. And
Right.
today it's a major corporation. And I think he started it selling T-shirts out of his van. He's now on Shark Tank. He's one of the sharks. But the other day I was looking at my online feed and he posts a meme and it said, "The days that break you make you." So I started studying and looking at some of these people out there, going like, they're not traditional leaders. They're saying stuff that leaders tend not to want to say because it means maybe there's some weakness. So going back to the two words, I'll start with leader because I spent 30 years as a business leader.
Right.
The number one role of a leader, Jon, as I teach it, is to create other leaders, period. Now, there's many other ways you can spin it, but if I wanted to create another leader in you, I would have to be vulnerable, authentic, real. I would have to show you that you saw something in me that you could follow, and therefore you will follow me, and I'll infect you with how I lead. And in corporate America, that's what you do. You're a CEO and you have a team of vice presidents, and they say, go out and build your empire.
Yeah.
You have to basically lead. Let's talk about thought. And I want to go into this in a way that brings in brain science because it's a passion of mine. So, Jon, if I can just draw a picture, and I want the audience to interact, and you as well. I want you to draw on your paper. Jon, if you can do this with me online, being a teacher, we're going to put you to work. I want you to draw a baseball diamond. Just draw a baseball diamond and put 3 bases on that: home plate, first, second, third. All right.
I'm going to do this on a old school pen and paper.
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right.
To the audience, do the same. Now, we want you to label that at the top. I want you to call it the dot, D-O-T, which is
the top is the dot. Okay.
Yeah. So the actual diagram of the baseball diamond is called the diamond of experience, the DOT. Okay. That's what we're calling it. Now you're looking at home plate. Home plate is, put the word trigger.
Trigger.
Like in a gun. Base 1 is thought. Base 2 is feeling / emotion. Base 3 is behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You got that?
Okay. Yep.
All right. So all those following along, you can come back to this, take a look at it again. But here's the thing, Jon. What I started learning, especially coming from the childhood I had, which wasn't the greatest, and into business leadership at an early age, that our brains are thinking machines. All your brain does is basically have thoughts. That's its job. And it's having, some say 30,000 thoughts a day. That is how your brain works. So let's take a look at that again. Let's take a triggering event. So I'm gonna throw one out there. I'm gonna say in the corner here of my home, I have the little bed that was the bed of my miniature Shih Tzu Shadow, and she passed away last year. She was always beside me sitting at my studio, so we put her down because she was old. And so the trigger is that bed. I look at the bed, and so I want you to, when I say the word dog, I want you to write down on base 1 the thought you have. Just right now, write something down, just a quick thought. When I say dog, just write a thought. Doesn't have to be a sentence. Now, what feeling and emotion do you attach to that? So as you're writing that down, I want to explain this to everyone else, that when I think about dog and that little bed that triggers my brain, what it's doing is trying to tell Tom what's really going on here. What's the current reality? The thought I have today of that is happiness. And the emotion that comes with it is that my dog used to sit on that bed and used to stare up with me, those big puppy eyes, as I was recording my show. And it was unconditional love. And I light up inside. If that's the emotion I have from that thought, Jon, what do you think the behavior might be that comes out of that? And I would suggest it's a positive behavior.
Yes.
I might be kind to somebody else. I might decide to go buy another dog because I miss her so much.
Well, let's not rush into things.
Let's not rush into exactly. So what I did there to illustrate is that is all your brain does. It has thoughts. Right. Now let's flip it around. What if my dog was hit by a car? And so the trigger is you say the word dog. So just say the word dog, Jon, like we're talking.
Dog.
What's happening now is my brain goes into its neural nets, all its billions of neurons that have thoughts and emotions wired together. Most of them we don't know are there. They just pile up over a lifetime. And I can choose a happier negative thought. I'm actually thinking of now sadness and fear because I saw my dog get hit by a car. The feeling of that is sadness and fear. The behavior, I might feel sick. I might not be able to finish this interview. I might have to go and sleep it off because I'm just feeling like, oh my God, I gotta, or have a drink or do something to get past that. So we have the choice to choose between positive and negative thoughts. That's all I want to illustrate with that
Yeah.
Now let's get into thought leadership.
Let me just say something there if I can.
Yeah.
Because it's a very interesting point that you make about having a choice, because we all have a choice. When you look at that bed, for example, and you have a thought, you have an emotion, you have a thought, there is a small, very small space in time where you can choose whether that is going to affect you or not. And most people, it just washes over them. But if you really break it down in terms of moments, the human mind does have the ability to say, okay, I'm not going to be triggered by that. But we become just so ingrained, and there are so many thoughts, as you point out, every day, that most of us don't take that pause, don't take that one beat pause to go, how am I going to respond to this? Because I've responded to it negatively the last 1,000 times. What happens if 1,001 I decide to just let it go and not worry about it? So it's what you say is absolutely true.
I mean, that's brilliant, John. And it leads right into how I define myself as a thought leader. What you said there, and we didn't script this, that just came out. What you said there is actually something that that millions and millions of people don't know, that you have the ability to choose and to pause, to step back, analyze thoughts, are they true or not, and then respond. And if you pause and respond, things always turn out better. Here's a radical thought that's based in science and truth. Most of our thoughts, John, are generally not true. Think about that. Think about that as children and as adults. And this is why when I talk about thought leadership, I say to you that when you become a thought leader and you start doing things, sometimes your best friends, your closest allies, maybe your family members, they might laugh at you. They might think you're nuts. When I started doing some things, which we'll go through as well in the platform, some of my CEO buddies, some of my leaders that I grew up with couldn't understand it. They thought I was crazy. But it doesn't matter. When you have it in your gut that you need to do something like this, if it's truly from the point of being in service to someone else, creating a legacy, it doesn't matter what people think. So let's go back to my definition of thought leader. My definition of a thought leader is if we accept the fact that most of the thoughts we have are untrue, and the majority of people never really understand why their thoughts do what they do, but they manifest in marriages, in businesses, leaders, in their own lives. If we're wired for our brains are created for survival, not for happiness. So put all that together, we can go through life being people who we really aren't. So
being reactive.
I
find with so many people are simply reactive rather than taking that minute or that second to pause and really think about, how am I going to deal with this? It's boom. It's always reactive. And look at our current social and political situation around North America. So much of it is driven by negative reaction. Just boom, it hits you right in the gut, and suddenly it's like,
absolutely.
Liberal or conservative or whatever, whatever your thing is, whoever you happen to be, angry at the time. And it's just reactivity.
That's right. And you nailed that. And so a thought leader, I define it as, and it's my own definition, and others have other definitions, is as a thought leader, I share my passions to help others by telling stories. So let me get into that.
Okay.
So what you might be saying, what do you mean by your passions? So I started looking at, what am I the only person on earth qualified to teach people? I mean, John, you have your gifts, I have mine, but what am I qualified to teach? And it lies in this other astounding fact that I'm going to share with you. Oprah Winfrey says it's about 90%. Science and research says that most people on the planet have about 80% of them have some form of unresolved trauma in their life. Trauma can be many things. It can be beginnings like you and I had, or it can be going bankrupt, or it can be whatever. A lot of trauma, Jon, comes from the thoughts that are put in us by others that aren't true. So imagine that you come into the world and they say that somebody said to me, your mom's number one job is to pop you out. And then after that, you're in the womb, you have safety, and you're happy. You come out, and for some reason, the world starts building a crust around you that you need to achieve more, and you need to get bigger paychecks, and you need to have more likes on social media to be happy. Whereas we should come out being happy. But what if, and it's true, we come into the world and things are poured into us that aren't true, but our brains at that early age don't know the difference. Right. So what happens is we go into life and we can really not understand and never be fulfilled and happy. So this started happening to me, and I started on a journey. I stumbled into this area of thought leadership. Get into that just for a minute here. That my early childhood was not the greatest. I'm no better special case. Grew up with addicted father, alcoholism, and a military commanding officer, and a really tough guy who was violent when he drank. And then a mother was always dealing with depression, anxiety, and dealing with that whole situation. At age 12, my father left us all a letter, my two brothers and I and my mom, a 7-page letter in big Sharpie writing, as Dad did, and he left. And many things happened before he left, which I won't get into. But my father left. I was homeless, and really that was the beginning of life. But up till age 12, all the stuff that I write about in my book and my memoirs that I observed, which were fairly horrible, including physical and mental harm from my father, go back to thought leader. I went into the business world and I fast-tracked, and I said this in my TED Talk, February 29th, 2020, Jon. And I think there was a guy in the audience who said, "We love you, Tommy," and came up to me afterwards, and I think we hugged, and that was Jon McComb.
That would have been me. Yeah.
That was you.
Well, I was because I know your story. We've talked privately. We've shared both of us have shared our traumas with each other, kind of comparing notes and what have you. And I know what it took for you to get up on a TED Talk stage and pour your heart out the way you did. And I was moved to yell out, "Hey, Tommy, we love you."
Oh my God, there it is.
It's only thing that came to mind at the time was that.
It's triggering that thought again, Jon. Thank you for that. So building on what I was saying, and I'll run through this with a bit of extra information, is that I went into the real world. In my TED Talk, I said I discovered later in life that I was a self-worth chaser, not a success chaser. But on the outside, people saw me as a guy who was a manager at a young age, 21, C-level executive at 31. I've done everything right up to chairman of the board, as you know. That's how you and I met. For 10 years, I was on a board. And here's the thing. What would it be like to know the voices, the wolves, I call them, inside a business person's head? What would it be like to hear what he or she is thinking as he's navigating through his life? And if we can accept the fact that somebody like me had such horrible thought patterns wired into me, which were really geared for survival, then navigating through life and everything I did was very confusing. What I started noticing, Jon, is, and I think I came on your show a long time ago and did a little spot, and I mentioned the leadership graveyard. And the leadership graveyard, I started noticing that people who mentored me, and I was mentored because I lost my father by most people in business. Right. People who mentored me were sitting in a room, seeing the same situation I was seeing, having the same problem to solve, and yet some of them were handling it differently. And for me, there were times where I went into a spiral. I'll give you a very quick example. I was the vice president of sales marketing operations for a financial company, and the CEO, me and the CFO were at a board meeting one night, and one of the board members, I was doing a PowerPoint presentation, and he just lost it. He started cussing at me and tearing me down. And I started looking around the table, and what was happening inside me, and nobody knew, is I was melting into an emotional puddle. I literally was becoming paralyzed in a way that I didn't understand. After that meeting, the CEO came up to me and was concerned, said, "Are you okay?" They didn't want to lose me. And the chair of the board comes to me and says, don't worry about him. He's done that to all of us. He's torn a strip off of me even. Now, my first thing I thought of was, why are you the chair of the board? You need to do some work and get to work here. But here's the thing. After that, I started learning, John, that throughout almost every area of my life, what I was seeing and what my brain was saying, remember thought, and then the emotion and the feeling and behavior, I was going into fight or flight. I was seeing things that weren't really true because my thoughts that were wired in me were interpreting most of the things that went on around me as something that it wasn't. Now, this was huge, and most people don't take the time to develop that. But I got to a point in my life where I was successful, but there was this missing sense of happiness or fulfillment.
Yes.
And so I went on a journey 10 years to try and discover all that. What I learned is that 80%, if we agree that 80% of people have some form of unresolved resolved trauma, why is it that I thought through most of my career as a business person that everybody else was perfect and I was the only one? Here's the truth. In business and in general, human beings don't want to show vulnerability because it's weakness. We're taught that. In business, if you show you're weak as a leader, maybe you won't get the job, or maybe they'll treat you differently. And so my gift to the world is, and when I have people on my radio show, they bring stories, and I'll say in my mind, that's my story. That's my story.
Heard
John,
that one before, yeah.
John, I've lost a son. I've gone bankrupt. I've lost my job. I've had a traumatic childhood. I've done this. Almost in my lifeline, I'm a faith-based guy, and I was thinking, God, why did I be put into these situations? And there's a reason for that, because I needed to do something with it. So I turned it into a platform to go out and teach, and looking to way to broadcast that across the world. And what's happening is people are coming to me on the radio show. We're up to almost 200 guests, and they're coming and wanting to be on the show. And if you look at the archives, most of them are successful people in their profiles, but they reveal on the show the truth about what I really discovered, which is that these people are struggling. And so maybe I can share what I overcame and how they can find their way forward. That's really how I started this, and it evolved into the entire platform as it is today.
Well, let's just we have another video clip that I'd like to play, and this goes back to, oh gosh, I guess it was 2016, I think. I hosted the launch of Tom's company, Create, and the launch of his book, The Way of the Quiet Warrior, 90 Days to the Life You Desire. And about 100 or so business leaders packed the Terminal City Club here in Vancouver to hear Tom's presentation. Now, not too many days after that, Tom and Anna Dutta were flown down to Los Angeles to appear on William Shatner's Moving America Forward, which is a show that celebrates innovative and creative entrepreneurs. And we just wanted to play you a little bit of a video clip from that William Shatner program. Here it is. That was obviously the introduction to the program. We're going to move ahead here if the internet will allow us.
Oh, it's doing that.
It's the internet, Tom.
Hang tight. Okay. How are we going to go?
uncomfortable buffering moments.
John, it looks like the video that we were trying to queue up there got caught in the internet. Well,
Okay.
I think the studio will let it load and we come back to that, but we can get it to talking about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, because that was, again, this was something that was, pardon the pun, created out of your marketing, your ideas. You're getting your name out there. Your book was out there. Press release happened to come across a producer's desk, and I, having worked in the news and talk business for all those years, I know exactly how that process works. Press release comes across a desk, and somebody goes, "Hey, this looks pretty interesting. Let's check into this." Next thing you know, you're in L.A. You're talking with William Shatner, and the boost I think that gave you just off the launch of Create, boom! Now you're flying down to L.A. It was like, wow, Tom has really taken off. And then all of the other things that you've done since that, in a relatively short period of time, honestly. But what I want to get to is you talk about trauma. You had tons of childhood trauma, as did I, but you have suffered a serious concussion while you were out on a bicycle ride to raise money for charity. You slipped and fell and you hit your head and left you with a major league concussion that still affects you to this day. And I think it's just it's a testament to your drive and your bravery and your stamina that you hung in there, because you could have just said, forget about all this stuff. I'm done. Your vision has been affected, but you didn't. You just kept plowing forward like, a guy on a set of snowshoes, man. You're just nothing is going to stop the dream. And so talk about that in terms of what you can teach people, what you can teach CEOs, what you can teach the average person about that sense of not being dissuaded, of not saying, I give up.
Yeah, man. Talk about a trigger. You brought me back to that. The TED Talk was February 29th, 2020. And I want to tie into that thought leadership. So here's the thing. When you become a thought leader, it becomes innate in you that you continue to look for ways to take situations or thoughts that happen in your life. And what can I do with it to teach people? What can I do with it to teach people? And this is really a mental muscle I had to build since I started doing this. I was doing the Ride to Conquer Cancer. Up and down on my bicycle, hills, 225 kilometers, 2 days. It was your bicycle. So
it was my bicycle. Still is my bicycle.
I had to do a post-mortem on the bike to see if I could blame you. The truth is, John, I arrived in peak condition, and after doing 100 kilometers, I slipped in a bathtub that night in a motel. My wife was there. I fell backwards. I cowered, and I lost my footing. I fell backwards, and like a battering ram, my head went into the tub. It cracked it, the tub surround. I blacked out. And all I remember is just when it came to rain, a shower coming down on my head, I was sitting on my butt like this, and it found me. And I had fallen on the vision center of the back of my head. And they've told me today, 3 years later, that lucky I fell that way, or maybe I wouldn't be here. And it led me into things I didn't expect. And here's the part about thought leader. How can you take your mess, turn it into a passion, and teach with it? When I start thinking about all the young kids out there who get concussed or people with brain injuries,
yes.
Nobody taught me when I had that happen, what do I do with it? And I pushed hard to try to get back to work, and I crashed. I slipped into depression, had my first suicidal thoughts. By the way, suicide is clinically diagnosed as 2 or more weeks of sadness without a triggering thought. Remember the diamond of thought? There's no trigger. You just go, I feel blah.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to get help, and I worked my way through that. But as a major breadwinner, my entire platform that we're talking about that I built actually crashed. It stopped because I'm the guy who does the work through it. It was a hell of a time, John. And what I decided to do with that, and this is my thought to the leaders out there, please take your adversity, please take what your tragedy or trauma is, and find the good in it, and find the courage to be vulnerable and tell your story, even if it's one story. because others will see you as real, Jon, and they'll follow you and they'll say, man, if he could do that, or man, I have a concussion. So many people, Jon, that I talk to now, when I start talking about I'm was waiting tables at a tap house as a side hustle, as you know. This one woman came in with rose glasses, and I said, we started getting on this subject. I said, why do you wear those? And she said, 7 years ago, I quit my job in Kelowna, BC, in the government, because I have this issue with my concussion and my eyes don't work. And exactly what she said, I went, man, that's my story. So
Yeah.
for leaders, I chose to take that. And through tough times, I actually chose to push myself to do a TED Talk. It was crazy, Jon. I wanted to quit. My coaches kept me going. I had short-term memory issues. I had cognitive problems, double vision, which I didn't know the extent of it. And as I stood behind the curtain that day, I was going to throw up. And I used some of the things they taught me in mental health, like a one breath skill to get balance. I pulled it off. I got a standing O. And what I realized is people stood up there and applauded me for my story, not for my CEO title or whatever. Since that happened, Jon, I've had many people come. I want to show you something I'm proud of, and it's the background behind me. I'm just going to have you full screen me there for a minute. Now, everybody, when I talk about a thought leadership platform, this started accidentally. If you look at the top left corner, Create is a education company I created. Jon mentioned November 2016 at the Terminal City Club. We created this platform to teach people in business what I'd learned over 30 years, which was about leadership. That morphed into just having fun and writing a book. And that book today, Way of the Quiet Warrior, Jon, has got almost 192 reviews written online. Again, most books don't get any reviews. You have to work hard. And I continue to tell the story, hand my book out, get it out there. People are writing things. If go look at that book and what they're writing, they're responding to the stories that are told because they have a common thread. Many of them are saying, you saved me or you freed me. Many of them are business people as well. The second book on the screen there, The Quiet Warrior Teaches Genie. Pleased to acknowledge Jeannie. Actually, it's Donna J. Setterland, who's just joined Create as our Chief Imagineer and Engineering Officer. I know, CIO, kind of funky. And she created the background of the screen there, Jon, that you see. She basically was schooled at Disney, and she's an Imagineer. And when I did my TED Talk, she was doing some illustrating work. She called me and she said, your story's mine. She said, I created this imaginary character, Jeannie, and was telling stories about my childhood and about some of the things I went through. Like, Jon, she lost her home in a hurricane. Her husband has bipolar, serious bipolar. And she's gone through this adversity. Well, she said, your story triggered that. So today we collaborated and we are publishing our book together. It's called The Quiet Warrior Teaches Genie, and we're honoring you with your story in it. You know that. Mm-hmm. These things happen just by being a thought leader, by telling my story. On the right hand of the screen there, under the Quiet Warrior logo, you see the GELF award that we talked about up front, now being recognized by others in the world, saying you look different. We notice you. That's part of this. The Quiet Warrior, you see a concept poster there underneath the second from the top on the right. That's the concept poster for the movie. And again, when I started sharing my story and doing this work, you just, in God's grace, I just go ahead and tell the story. I don't expect anything. A movie producer in the US found my book, read it, and said, I want to do a movie on this. So we are 3 years in, the screenplay's done, and we're going to film it in Canada. I'm a producer in that. And if somebody was to say to me, Jon, in 2009 or 7, when I was sitting a paid CEO, that this would what my life looked like, I'd laugh at them. And then finally, we're launching what's called the QW Literary Award. And this will be an award that I want to rival some of the biggest literary awards for authors who write books with purpose. In other words, they go through adversity and they have the courage to live their life and teach and be a thought leader with that. And this is being launched probably in the next 6 months. We already have 4 books lined up. And my idea is to build a list of 100 go-to books that will be a legacy for the next generations based on people like you and I who have something to teach as thought leaders. So I'm going to, the last thing I want to say about all this to everybody, if you want to be a thought leader, you already are. You have thoughts in you. You're teaching people every day. If you want to take it seriously and go to that level and have a platform where people notice you globally, then there's a lot of work, but you can find one story, one adversity you've overcome, and find a way to share that. Last thing I want to add to that, Jon, is about my father. Yeah, you know about my dad.
Mm-hmm.
When you read the beginning of my book, it didn't put my dad in a good light. I said, my father's demons became my gifts. But
Yes.
knowing what we know about
That's a great line, by the way.
knowing what we know about that, and you and I have similar threads there. When I learned the dot and became a thought leader, I learned that you have the power to change the meaning of thoughts and teach people how to do that. Your brain can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I interviewed a woman called Lily Dooland, who she lost, get this, she comes to my show because she knows it's a platform to express. She told the story that she lost her daughter at 2 months old to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, on Christmas Eve. Can you imagine?
No.
And before that, she struggled with alcohol. Amazing. So let me get this out quick because I didn't intend to share this. I just riffed on it. My father, the words I associated with my dad's name, Ashok. My middle name is Ashok, Ashok. Dad's from Fiji, and my grandfather is from India, who I never met. Words like demon, bad dude, sloppy drunk. That's how I talked about my dad in my mind. Now, going back to the dot, if every time I saw somebody who resembled my dad, somebody tough or somebody gregarious or drinks, the thought would be that about my dad. The feeling emotion would be what? Not good. The behaviors, shame, guilt, anger. So this is what I changed it to. Lily said you can give meaning to grief. And she created the name work framework where you take a word, could be a person's name or a thing, could be my dog, and you attach to each letter of the word a positive attribute called an affirmation. So here's what I came up with. I did this live on my show with her. You can find it in the archives. And it changed my life. This just happened months ago. Ashok is author. I forgot, Jon, through all the negative thinking, that my dad actually wrote a book. I remember him when I was a kid, piecing it together, and he wrote a book, and he was a teacher at BCIT, our technical institute, and he taught electrical trades. This was the training manual for the Western Joint Electrical Training Society, which he traveled the province. Even though he met other women and had fun, he used his book to teach other people. S for storyteller. My dad was a storyteller. When he passed away in January 18, Jon, he was 22 years dry with Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had orphaned him. I was so angry I didn't see him for over a decade. And when I went to the funeral and when I sat down for coffee with him a few months before he died unexpectedly, he started telling stories. He said, I go into prisons. I do men's meditation groups. He said, I want you, son, to take my story, which is your story, and continue that mission. I didn't know he was going to die 3 months later. So H is for hero. And back to my radio show and the narrative behind it. A hero is somebody who takes pain, turns it into something positive, comes back as a shaman, guide, Jon, and teaches. So dad was a hero, but he was a villain when I knew him, but he really was a hero. O, we'll come back to that because I got stuck. And then K for karma. Dad taught me to work hard, never put your hand out, don't expect anything. And I grew up in a world where sometimes because of the color of my skin, they said, you'll never make it into the C-suite. There's not many of you, whatever. Yeah. I just worked my butt off and outperformed people in the room, and things just came. Being a thought leader, everybody, if you put it out there and teach people, create a platform to do that, even if it's just doing a blog or a radio show, karma will come. So getting back to, what was yo? Lily took over and she said, omnipresent. And I went, that's it. Jon, the thing is, my dad passed the torch and he said, I want you to take my story, and my dad's in me, obviously, and I want you to be omnipresent with it. And this is the bow on top of the cake. Yeah. If you want to become a thought leader, you can do this. You want to become omnipresent, which means how do you get Jon McComb's voice or my voice around the world? Well, you saw the picture. You create things.
We're doing it right now.
Exactly. You create things. And that really is this whole thing. And I don't know where it's going next, Jon. I just know that since I've been noticed, I've been getting calls to go on TV and do this and that. And I'll tell you, after the concussion and what's been going on here, here's my last advice for people who are doing this. You'll get to a point where you outgrow yourself. Little Tommy started this as a business leader, and it's grown to this. And honestly, the amount of work to keep it going is a lot. So I've just hooked up with a digital marketing agency. I can put it out there because they know I'm talking. It's called Search and Rescue, and they take people. I know it.
How
How
terribly appropriate.
And they take people, John, and they go in and they basically they say they create a freakish kind of packaging around you. So back to my other mentor, another Jon, Jon LaDuca of a company called the Wisdom Link in Michigan. I went down there before we started all this in 2015 and spent a day with him. And then when I was leaving the room, the idea was he pulled out of my head all the wisdom because I was looking for something. What do I do with all this? And we put it on a whiteboard, and that's where we developed the business model for Create, the people development company, which now is an education company, world recognized,
award-winning as well.
Award-winning. And it was just a thought. And when I was leaving, Jon handed me an orange book, and he said, "You got to read this." And I said, "What's this?" And it said "Thought Leader" on the cover. And I said, "I'd heard that." He said, "You got to be one." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because only you can teach the world through the lens you have." He said, "You just got to figure out what it is, Tom, and you got to find your tribe." So I read that book, and that was the seed that was planted. And when you become a thought leader on your journey, Jon, you never know if you're on the right track. And I just say, if you believe in God, even if you don't, trust your faith to keep following the doors that open. Because here's the thing, I had built this platform, everything was going great. And then I fall and almost kill myself with a concussion.
Yeah.
So God sometimes, I believe, strips us of things to teach us more. And I had to go to Costco and be a produce stalker and to a tap house to wait tables. My wife said something profound to me this morning. Anna said, I was kind of upset about it a little bit because I was lost on that track for a while. And she said, "Tom, I think you went there because God wanted you to learn what it was like to relate to average people." He said, "Because you never did. You went to the top."
Yeah.
And so that's another turn today. What have I done with that? I'm working on an online course. Anna and I are working on a book together, and it's going to be really about, surviving 25 years married and navigating through the world as the world sees it as an average person. And if 80% of those people are what we said, wired with thoughts that make their lives unfulfilled, man, we got a lot of stories that we're going to be telling. Again, where's your thread? Where's your setback? Don't look at it as a negative, Jon. Look at it as, take it and turn it into something, and then teach the world with it.
Well, I can tell you that since we first met on that board of directors situation, that I have been a huge admirer of you on a million different levels, just simply because of your perseverance and your brilliant ideas, and having gone from the C-suite to where you are now. I can't wait to see over the next 5 years, however many years it's been, 5 to 8, 10 years, where you're going to go with this, because I think it's just going to explode, because what you have to say and what you bring to the table in terms of what you've been through and your own perspective, I think is desperately, desperately needed in our world today. So it's been a pleasure to be your friend and to watch you go through all of this. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and host your show and interview you, because it's to me, it's always incredibly insightful and educational. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jon. And they say a thought leader is also humble. So I've had a lot of people, as fans, and people who are also critical, because they say when you tell your story, people who didn't want to know you want to be your friend. And you've never judged me always being a friend. But here's the thing, people don't know, when we started working together on the board, I'd meet you across from NW for a coffee at the Hotel Georgia. And what was going on, you probably know now, is there were thoughts passing between us. I mean, there are many things that you taught me and many things that planted seeds. And that's the whole idea, everybody. Doesn't matter whether it's Jon McComb or anybody else. Never turn a back to somebody who wants to sit down and talk to you about their story, because behind it, we're all connected by a thread. Can I do a plug on the movie and a couple things before we wrap?
No, I'm sorry, Tom. Look, we're right out of time. Tom, I mean, whose show do you think that?
I know
Sure.
sponsors
Go
aren't
ahead.
getting their money worth today, are they?
Go ahead.
Maybe what we can do, John, if it's okay with your producer, is we can take that video clip which hung up. It's actually on the website, but when we produce a video of this on YouTube, maybe we can get that put in there so people can see the actual Moving America Forward.
Already working on it.
Okay, fantastic. The movie, so it's called The Way of the Quiet Warrior film, and we've done a strategic partnership with Create. That's my education company, and Menning Films, an indie film company out of Ohio. We have already secured the composer who's done 57 original scores. This guy's amazing for the film. We have a major recording artist who has come from Nashville and written the Way of the Quiet Warrior original song, and it's epic. And so that is done. We have brought in a humor consultant who's actually my TED Talk consultant, who helped us infuse humor into the film, because it's a film, congruent to the stories we're talking about, and so much more. And how this is going to fit into the thought leadership platform is the film's going to travel around the world. We're looking for a big impact. And I can't steal thunder or they'll kill me, but I can tell you this, that what do you think it would be like to watch a movie where a leader in the world, somebody who, you thought was accomplished, had a family and ran businesses, did a lot of different things, to hear the voice in their head, which we call the wolves or those demons. Yeah. And so we're creating a narrative style film, and it centers around a boardroom table where there's characters around the table that represent different threads and stories. And the lead character, me, will have this fun little side to him that'll have these little voices which is actually the real thoughts he had as he went through life until he figured it out based on what was put in him. And that, everybody, I hope when you see it, will trigger millions of people around the world to say, that's me. And there's hope, and there's time to start rewiring and doing some things with this to help the world. Really excited about it. They'll be on the YouTube channel, John, for the show. We're doing Way of the Quiet Warrior Real News episodes, so you'll see updates on that, and more later on my website, create.ca, KREAT.ca. You'll be able to find the media page there, and eventually you'll have the movie page. So thanks for having me on your show.
Your
John.
show. It's been my pleasure to have you on your show. Tom Dutta, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the Quiet Warrior podcast and Tom Dutta's YouTube channel, and set the notifications so you can be totally up to date on Tom's new shows. It has been a great pleasure for me to sit in as a guest host on the Way of the Quiet Warrior show. I thank Tom Dutta, and most importantly, we both thank you for your time and your kind attention today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.